I am very excited because it is finally happening. I am seeing Presence tonight. And guess what? I know this is late, but this is a pre-screening. It's a general screening, but it's an advanced screening. This film isn't actually coming out for another 10 days or something like that in Australia, but I'm just happy we're getting a cinema release at this point. That's all I can hope for. I'm going into this with a little bit more information than I would have liked. I'm not gonna rant on it this time. I'm just so sick of ranting on it, trust me. It annoys me more than it annoys anyone else. But please don't leave comments and messages for me about things that you consider non-spoilers, because I can't vet that and I want to read all my comments and all my messages, okay? I love you guys. Honestly, within the 11 years on YouTube, that was the first time that happened to me. So moving on. Presence is a psychological horror drama that is directed by Steven Soderbergh, and it follows a family that is convinced that they are not alone after moving into their new home in the suburbs. I have heard people talking. I've heard a lot of conversation already with Companion coming out and now this about what is a horror and what's not a horror, and honestly that's up to the eye of the beholder. If you did see my last video, I'm not here to put things in the box, but it is listed as a horror. And Steven Soderbergh is the director, who I absolutely love. His movies are always unique, and I wouldn't say they are experimental by any means, but they're always unique in one certain aspect. And he always follows new subjects and new themes, so I'm always interested to see his perspective and his take and his stylization on these themes. And I'm quite aware that not everything is as it seems, but you guys know I cover thrillers, horrors, anything dark, anything disturbing, and anything to do with a ghost story, I'm always there. One of my favorite films of 2018 was his film Unsane, which is a stalker thriller that is twisted as hell, but it also is completely shot on a phone, and it just gives a very interesting style and perspective. I swear I'm gonna stop using that word. POV for the characters and the situation. And I feel like this film is gonna do something very similar, but in its own haunted way. Another exciting aspect is this one stars Lucy Liu, and it also stars Julia Fox, and I've seen some kind of split reviews, not in terms of read anything about them, just seen some numbers being thrown out there for what people have been scoring it, because we are getting it so late. So I'm excited to see what I think, because I feel like it's very mixed bag and I don't know where my personal taste will land. But I'm gonna take you guys along with me today. If you haven't checked it out, I'm gonna let you know whether it's worth your time and what to expect, whether it's worth your personal time, whether you think you'll like it with how I describe the film, spoiler free. So come along with me for a late showing. It's 9:30 p.m. tonight, which I am not happy about because it's late, but also it is good for ghost stories to be the last thing you watch before you go to bed. And second, it's hot as hell in Perth, Australia right now, and I'm glad I'm going to be escaping the sun, so I'll be able to get back in the car and my camera won't overheat. Let's go and see Presence. Let's go see this haunted story. Come with me. Friends, well, I have so much to say, and it is all spoiler free, because that film, it was so different, which I kind of expected, as I said at the start, but I guess I didn't really anticipate how different and how well the marketing kind of hides those aspects. So I enjoyed it, but I do think it's for a very particular kind of audience. Luckily, a lot of you guys seem to come together and hang out on my channel, so I think a fair few of you will be very interested in this film. So Presence, as we said at the start, is about... Sorry, I'm looking very found footage right now, which kind of fits the bill today, because it is about a family who are moving into this house that has a presence within. And the film, the way it's put together, is a little bit jarring going into the cinema and watching a film like this, you just don't get to see them that often, because it's not like Screen Life where films are, you know, where everything is within the screen in a movie, you know, a film like Searching or Missing or Profile. And it's not like found footage in the way that it is footage that has been obtained from somewhere, but it is shot in a very specific stylization that is a perspective, a voyeur view of the situation that does feel, for me, it felt very found footage, even though it technically is not. It's not meant to be found footage, but the way it's put together, it is very matter of fact. It is cutting through time and only showing specific moments, but it is showing them in full. And the best part about this is it's showing them in this wide angle that feels very raw and very vulnerable. So not only is it about this family that is moving into this house, they also have a lot of interpersonal issues, as all families do, but you can see kind of family breakdown in different departments through layered relationship issues and just things going on. And because it's almost so broad and you're getting this voyeuristic point of view of it all, it feels very daring and just raw. It's very vulnerable. But I say that because it's like that for the actors too. It's hard to hide a bad take in a wide shot that just keeps going and you keep moving back and forth throughout the room and in and out, and it's really hard for them to hide anything. And also it then changes the pacing of the film because you can't quicken a scene or, you know, make it punchy. You have to obviously work out these things logistically before they go in to shoot that moment. And so you're watching everything kind of play out in real time, but as I said, it's spliced through time, so that in between all of these scenes, it cuts to black and then it's the next moment. So the black is to show the progression in time. So that is just the setup. That is nothing to do with the plot at all. And it really, I felt like, in a very strange way, it fed my inner found footage fan or also my inner Paranormal Activity fan. And this is where I'm going to lose a lot of you. But if you like those kinds of films that are very slow burn, something is going on in the house and trying to figure it out, this film has a mystery element behind it, but it's mysterious in a completely different way than I was expecting. And I found it to be very alluring, and me trying to figure out where it was going with all of these little threads that were given to you by all of the different characters within this family and what they were going through separately. They really break it down and show moments where they think that they're by themselves, but you're watching. And it's just a really interesting appeal, but it does, because of all of that, have that slow progression where it is a slow burn and it does take you through these elements. So it is asking the audience to be very patient, but it's also asking, do you like this style? And a lot of people don't like this style. A lot of people don't like, I wouldn't even call it experimental, but I did feel like it was bridging some gaps that we don't have within, I don't want to say found footage because it's not found footage, and I guess that does make it something completely different, but it just bridges a lot of gaps that we haven't used yet. I'm trying to pick my words carefully with this one. But I would say it is definitely a slower paced film, but it needs to kind of build on these different aspects slowly. And because, as I've said, with the wide shots and the way the scenes they carry out in full, there's no close-ups of faces. There's nothing like that. There's no cut to a close-up of face, I should say, and there's no reverse shot. So it really is asking you to slow down and take everything as it goes. And I know that that is not the best. It's not like a slick, fast, exciting film in all those regards. But when it does have payoffs, that's when it works, because I was zoned in. I was locked into that film. It really got me. And it also, another huge aspect of the film and the style of it is the music, which really keeps the tone. It's a haunted story, but the music really emphasizes that. And it has a long running soundtrack behind it, this repetitive score, which I love. And with the music comes the lulls as well, because when there's not that brooding, burning, growing, building music in the background that is wedging these scenes together, there is complete silence. But it takes over in moments and then dips in others. So it's it's a very poetic story in that regard. And in saying that, even though it is a slow burn film, I feel like the payoff is worth it. I wouldn't say it is anything too profound. I thought that they were going to try and do something like that with this story, but sometimes it's just for the journey, and I feel like that is this film. But I do think that it had a clear intent and a clear goal, and it wasn't trying to be too ambitious in doing so. I felt something, but I don't think it's trying to evoke a huge emotion in the audience, except for bringing you along with this story and hoping that you understand the dynamics of the family and get something out of that. And I did get something out of it. I am really surprised that people are saying that this isn't a horror movie, which I hate that conversation. I just cannot do it anymore. It's so silly. Why are we trying to block what filmmakers are putting out there in their marketing as a horror movie? Why are we telling people that whatever version of horror is not real? Like, I'm not scared of spiders, but I'm not going to tell you a spider film is not scary. I'm not going to tell you it's not horror. Horror is such a broad term, and I think it's all about filmmakers' intent, and this is labeled as a horror movie. And not only that, it does have like an actual haunt. It has moments. People scream in this movie. Things happen, and I really held my breath at moments. I was shocked in other moments. I think the reveals worked for me, and it may not be the scariest film of all time, but for me, this is good horror. It's innovative, it's clever, and it's creative, and at the end of the day, it's a really cool film to see at the cinema. I think that this film was really fun to watch in the big screen, but as I said before, with the silence and the way it comes together, you do have to make sure the audience, which is not always possible, the audience is willing to go on that journey with you and be silent, because it works the best. Haunted films that are actually trying to be haunting, just like Paranormal Activity, that are focused just on a haunting, have to be in silence. People laughing, people moving, people talking, it breaks the spell. It breaks what it's trying to do psychologically to you, so I do think that that's of utmost importance. I guess that was good that it was a really late screening, because everyone was somewhat quiet in mine, and I do think it's beautiful, especially with those wide angle shots, to see it at the cinema, because it gives the full effect, and it's so fun to look around the screen and try and see different aspects. And I think that there's probably a lot of things hidden in this film that I didn't even see. It's also a really short runtime. It's 1 hour and 24 minutes or something like that. I just thought it was a really solid watch, to be honest. The only thing I actually wish someone told me before watching this film is it isn't that profound. Don't expect this huge, grand, feeling coming out of it, but do expect a winding mystery. There is a payoff, but it's just not as poetic as you probably hope it would be. Or it could be, given the circumstances. But he's also not really a director that I would have seen that coming from. I think he finds an idea and he sticks to it, and he figures out how to make it work best as an enjoyable film, and I felt that in this film. If you're a fan of found footage film and you want to up the ante and watch a more modern version of that, you love haunted stories, and you're willing to go in and watch something that maybe will take a little bit to get into it, but the build is worth it, and there is a payoff. It's just an enjoyable film. Definitely check this out. I was very happy to see it in the cinemas. I'm going to give this film a 7. The reason I'm giving it a 7 is because I found it completely enjoyable, but it just didn't have that extra oomph for me that really I feel like I take home with me. I think it was a really beautiful and satisfying ride, but it just didn't have that extra I take it home, I think about it later kind of thing. I feel like it wrapped up pretty well, and I'm not really left with any thoughts about what happened. Not that that's a bad thing, like that it's not ambiguous, but more so I'm not taking away any meaning or anything bigger from it. For scare, I did get kind of nervous at one point, but I do think it's very up and down, and it's more thrilling in some aspects, but then also just interesting. I felt myself being very interested. I would probably give it a lower score for scare, but I definitely think that it has some moments in it. If you're looking to introduce someone into horror, maybe this is actually a good one if they like slower paced films. So I'd probably give it like a 5 for scare. I actually think that's fair, because there were moments, especially at the start, that felt very alarming and just off-putting, just the icky feeling, which I think they did really well to give the idea of what a presence feels like in the house instead of showing it in a more obvious sense. So I think that was more of the feeling, the unnerving, that was scary to me. And for originality, this is a weird one because I don't think it hasn't been done before, but I think, as I said earlier, it kind of bridges a gap with bringing it more into popcorn horror, which I'm gonna have to let you guys figure out what that means. But I think it bridges a gap more so than creates anything completely new. So I would give it like maybe a 7. I'm gonna give it a 7. I think that's quite fair. Okay, let me know what you thought about Presents down below. I would love to hear all of your thoughts. If you missed it, I did a review on Companion, and I also talked about my most controversial takes, but it's not what you think. That video is here, and I'll talk to you all very soon for a new video. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't, and stay safe and stay spooky. Bye, friends.